Hello, everyone, and welcome to Parent Prep. My name is Cynthia DeVise, and I am your host today. We are talking about, how to talk to your children about race. So I have a few housekeeping things that I would like to share with you. So welcome, and I'll go over those things as we begin our workshop. So thank you for coming, and we appreciate you being here. So first thing first, a few housekeeping items. We are still learning about this virtual platform that we are on. So please understand, we appreciate your flexibility as we navigate through tonight's workshop. Please remember that this session is being recorded. And so we would love to be able to share this with other people who are not able to be here at this specific time. So this session is being recorded as you join us live. During this session, you will be able to see the presentation that I have available for you. If you're unable to see me, then you may need to just open up your screen so that it will be full screen so that you can see the presentation and you can also see my lovely face. Yeah, it's on the paper. I had to say that. Okay. The other thing I wanted to say in regards to questions, on your screen, there's a Q&A for question and answers. And if you have any questions, then you can put them in the chat and I will do my best to answer them as I see them pop in, or we will definitely have a Q&A session at the end. I will make sure I leave time for that at the end of the session. So if you have any questions, just put them in the chat and I will get to them. So welcome. And I'll go ahead and begin my session. So thanks again for being with us today. So this session is called Talking to Your Student About Race from pre-K all the way through high school. We know that this conversation is ever present in our world today about race and equality and equity. And so we thought it would be so important to be able to give parents and family members the tools that they need to have this conversation. Have you had the talk with your children, with your students? So a lot of times you probably have recently heard people are talking about having the talk. Most parents of color must have a talk with their students about race in America. And so my question is, have you had the talk with your child? It doesn't mean necessarily that you have to be a parent of color to have the conversation with your child. We're just encouraging you to have the conversation with your child about race. Some people may ask, what is the conversation about when we're talking about having the talk? It can very well be about skin color. Many people in our world have a variety of skin colors. That could be a conversation. The conversation could be how people treat each other because of the color of their skin. It could be a conversation about what is race. What does race mean? What does the term race mean? Right? It's usually based on the characteristics of a person. It could be about their features of their nose, their lips, their hair, their skin color. A lot of things go into place when we're talking about race. So study shows that babies as young as 6 months to 1 year old can recognize skin color and hair textures. And a lot of times people want to know, when do you have the talk with your kids? Or when do you begin to understand that your children can pick up signs of race? And we understand now through studies that as young as 6 months to 1 year old, our children, our babies, are recognizing race. So do your best as a parent, a family member, a guardian, someone who's buying a gift for another child, to expose your child and our students to a diverse culture, a diverse environment. It would definitely go a long ways into introducing them to dolls of different colors. If you buy a puzzle, then the puzzle can have a variety of color faces in the puzzles, those type of things. And that will definitely help our students, our children at a very young age, be introduced into the conversation of race. So at the age about 0 to 2 years old, we really believe it's important about what you do is just as important as what you say. So we're encouraging family members to be able to engage with other family members. If we weren't in COVID times, then I would definitely say invite someone to your home that may be of a different ethnicity than you are, so that your children can definitely see that you engage with people of all different ethnicities and races, so that they'll understand that we do engage, we love, we have conversations with people from various races. Buy them toys and books with diverse characters in it, because that way you are definitely introducing a very diverse environment to your child. So by the age of 2, then your child will already know that race is important to you and that you engage with people of all different backgrounds. Talking to your child about race. When your child becomes more vocal, it's normal for them to just all of a sudden talk to them, for them to say things about people of a different skin color. They may say, wow, that kid is brown, that kid is black, that kid is orange, that kid is yellow, and they will use their colors. So we want to make sure that parents understand, don't be embarrassed by that. That's part of a human nature, right? That kids will recognize colors, and they will say that you're probably going to go to the grocery store and they're going to point out someone with a brown skin tone and say brown. And so that may embarrass some parents, but it is human nature. The only thing that I could definitely recommend is to be able to talk to your child about, yes, to calmly and positively kind of reinforce what they see and say, yes, we do have people in the world who are brown. We have some that are of a darker shade, or they may be of a lighter shade, but we're all people who we're all from the human race, and we all do very similar things in life. And so it's important that we talk about those physical characteristics that children may begin to point out. We all have a nose, we all have fingers and toes, but your toes may be brown, your toes may be of a lighter shade. And so that's important to begin to pick out and not to be surprised when your kid begins to say those things. So when your child becomes about 3 or 4 years old, I would say, watch what you say, because at that age, then our kids are definitely picking up what we say, and then they will repeat it. You may recall when your student was much younger, then you would hear them say something exactly what you said before. They're going to repeat it. So as a parent, as the mentor, as the guardian, as the adult, we do have to be careful what we say, because they will repeat it. Okay. The other thing that I would definitely say is you don't have to hush them when they're saying those things. Like if they're going into the store and they say something, they blurt something out. So the most important thing, and the thing that I can recommend for you to do, is just use those things as teaching moments to be able to explain to your child when they're that young, to say, no, this is not what this is. It means this, to be able to explain to them the differences that they're seeing in front of them. So don't hush comments about differences. Use them as an opportunity to highlight in a positive way while pointing out the similarities. So as I mentioned before, when your child may say, well, yes, their hair is really curly, or their hair is really kinky, then you can say, yes, we're all blessed with beautiful hair. Some hair is straight and long, some hair is kinky and short, or what curly and short. But then that is what we need to explain to our kids, that we all have hair. We're all blessed with different lengths and types of hair. And we all use the same way, to warm our head, right? To cover our heads, to keep us warm. So be able to reinforce what they're seeing, but then to explain the differences that they see as well. Talking to your kids about race when they're about 4 to 6 years old, it's common for those children at this age to assign positive traits to people of their own ethnic group, and then negative traits of people who look, different from themselves. So I put these pictures down here in regards to a variety of dolls. So you can definitely use dolls to begin to introduce to your children kids faces that may look different than theirs. skin tones, just facial features, and then they'll be able to understand that all of these dolls are beautiful, right? They're all beautiful. They have different features that we all have a variety of, special traits, right? So my nose may be wide and flat, and your nose may be a little bit more narrow, but they all do the same thing, right? We're all able to breathe through our noses. So they may look a little bit differently, but they're all special characteristics that make us look unique for who we are as people. So finding a way to be very specific with your child and very direct, but also giving them good information so they'll understand that all of our physical traits are beneficial for what the purposes that they serve, but also that it to highlight the beauty of all of them so that your child will know now not only is your nose beautiful, but her nose is beautiful, and they both serve the same purpose for who we are as people and human beings. So around ages 7 to 8, make sure I don't have any questions. Around age 7 and 8, around this age, children become more receptive to the idea that people are different and alike at the same time. So they will begin to recognize their friends in school. They'll begin to see that, yes, we are different shades of colors. We're different heights. So they'll begin to notice that this is a boy, this is a girl, and how we are still different, but yet we are the same. So for family members who are dealing with children ages 7 through 8, it's important to find a way to point out the similarities so that your child doesn't get the idea that one child's race is more is so different, so vastly different than the next child's race. So that is up to the adult to be able to point that out when the child comes home from school or visiting a relative who may have a different mindset than what you are trying to teach in your home, is to point out the similarities and to do it in a calm way. We don't want to make our kids feel that there's a problem in pointing out the differences, but we want them to acknowledge the differences, but then also to recognize that we're all human beings and that we do have some similarities and what those similarities are. So what I encourage family members to do is to definitely dispel cultural myths, any stereotypes that you may hear your child saying, right? Or that they come back from school or visiting another family or out into the community or hearing it on their social media or whatever it is out there in the world, that they may pick up some cultural myths about other races or people. Then it's up to the adult to correct them, okay? Because we know that our children are being bombarded by things that they hear outside of the home and sometimes in the home. And so we want to make sure that the messages that they receive are messages that are free of stereotypes and they're getting accurate information. Okay, so, and when I talk about dispelling any types of myths or stereotypes, make sure that you do it in a way that your child will be able to hear you. I think it would be much more difficult if you're yelling and screaming about it, or if they know that they kind of took you off guard. Just be able to say it in a calm way. And sometimes we may not be able to say it right then. We have to walk away, kind of gather ourselves and come back and be able to share correct information to say, you know what, Timmy, when you said X, Y, and Z, that's not correct, but I do want to tell you the correct information, and then begin to share it that way in a calm manner so that your student, your child will be able to hear you, not kind of loud and obnoxious. That probably won't be very helpful. Okay. So I talk about, rebuting like negative statements in a calm and straightforward manner. I know that some parents have come back to say, I don't know where my child got this from, but I heard my child say her skin is dirty. And because it's a different color than the other child. So what I need parents to do is to stand, speak, and act, but do it in a calm way. So when you hear comments like that, you don't want your child going to say that to another child, because that's very disturbing and it's very harmful to the child on the other end who's receiving that comment. So we know we've heard that in school, and teachers definitely confront those type of comments, but we also have to make sure, or we would like to ensure, that our parents are confronting those comments as well. So no, her skin is not dirty, okay? It's the color of her skin. We all have skin as a protective covering for our bodies, and our skins range from in various colors, right? So your skin may be a peachy color, or a, like maybe it's a caramel color, or it's a lighter brown color, or your skin may be a white color or an off-white color, or a pink color, whatever the color is. We want to be able to explain that to your child and say we all have different colors of skin. We all have different textures of hair, but they all serve a purpose. So it's important for us as adults who are leading children and guiding them, but also important for family members to be able to stand in the moment, speak the correct information, and then to act on that. And then I think when we do that, we also reinforce that with our children, so that when they are out in the world and they hear something that is a negative statement, they're able to stand, speak, and act in a calm way so that they can put out the correct information for all children and all people. So at the ages of around 5 and 11, encourage your student to be an upstander and not a bystander. Pretty much what I was saying earlier about having them to be able to understand, to stand, to speak, and to act, all in a calm way so that they can kind of disrupt any stereotypes or disrupt any negative behavior in regards to someone's race. Because a lot of times they may overhear something, but if you have already taught them the correct information, then they can stand and be able to act on someone else's behalf, as long as they're not in a situation where they will be harmed, okay? So we're teaching our kids and we're encouraging them to be upstanders and not bystanders in certain situations. So talk about how kids who look different from them may experience life differently. And you can frame it in terms of fair and unfair. This also goes to the earlier slide when I talked about having the talk with your child, and how most families of color have had to have a conversation or the talk with their child about race. And some of those conversations come very early on in a child's life from their parents. So for an example, for me and my children, and for my parents, and as they were parenting me, there were certain things that we needed to know early on. When you go into the store, you don't touch anything, you don't say certain things. They pretty much had to have a conversation about what we should and should not do when we're out in public, okay? And that was part of the talk, right? So one of the things that I think is important, not only for parents of color, but also for families who have white children, is to begin to have a conversation about our appearance and how we look, and how those experiences, life experiences, may be different for one race of people than the other. And I think that all families can have the talk and the conversation, because I know for my children, one of the things that I would need to tell them is that in the world that you walk into every day, people know that you are a Black American, African American young person, and they may treat you differently because of the color of your skin. But it does not mean that you are valued any less, or that you have different rights. You have the same rights as everyone else, but we need to make sure that we have the conversation so that you know that if someone treats you differently, you know that it has nothing to do with who you are as a person and the value that we place on your life. It has something to do with what they see on the outside and what their perceptions or their perspective is, and how they deal with people of a different race or a different color, right? So I think that's important for everyone to have the conversation, because when I have the conversation with my children, I have the conversation as who they are as Black American children, and you would have the conversation as for your children in regards to the race that they are. So if they're white American children, then you have a conversation about how people may perceive them because they are white. and the privileges that they may have because they have a different color skin, unlike the privileges or the access that someone else of a different skin complexion will receive just by viewing them from the outside, right? Not even knowing who that person is. So those are conversations that we definitely should have with our kids. And I do believe at the ages of 5 and 11, then they will definitely understand that. Encourage them to be critical users of pop culture. And what I mean by that is a lot of our music that we allow our children to listen to, or maybe sometimes we don't even allow them to listen because sometimes by 11 they have their own phone and they have access to internet. So some of the things, the messages they're receiving through pop culture, we need to realize and understand that not everything that they hear that they should repeat. And so some of those conversations we definitely need to have as parents to be able to have those conversations with our children. So in the middle school, your student will probably be in their tweens or teens, and they're more likely to have smartphones and access to social media. So it's very important as a parent to begin to monitor what they see and what they hear. And if we're not able to monitor that by putting some gatekeepers or some restrictions on those phones, then we need to definitely have conversations with them about what they may have seen or what they're listening to. Okay, so by this time in middle school, students had their own views about racism, about the protests, and social inequalities that they may see. And so it's important for us as adults to be able to have those conversations with them because they're already learning things in school through texts or by their peers that they're having conversations with, or just our social studies and current events that are happening in our classrooms in conversations of what's happening in our world. And then of course, with the news and things that are happening. So it's important as parents and as adults that we begin to have the conversations with them because they're shaping their views off of those conversations that they're having with people outside of your home. And so in order for you to better understand what they're learning and what's happening in their mind, in their head, then we have to have conversations with them. And you can start the conversation just by saying, well, what did you think about the news tonight? Or what did you think about, what are they saying on social media? What are some of the memes that you've seen today? And be able to have those conversations with them because it's so important, because if you don't have those conversations with them, then trust me, they're having them with someone else. Okay, so students are educating themselves about why the injustice is happening in our world today, and we want to give them accurate information. And you can do that by giving them books and articles and just having the conversation. And later on in the slides, I'm going to share a couple of resources with you that you can be able to share with your student in this age group. So parents must be a part of the learning. Let your student lead the conversation. So by just kind of prompting that conversation about, hey, what are some of the current events that you guys are talking about in school? What are some of the things that people are saying online about X, Y, and Z that's currently happening in our world? And then let them lead the conversation. You can start it out with maybe just a conversation starter, like what I've shared with you today, but let them lead it and then begin to give them accurate information or maybe a book or an article to be able to kind of gauge their learning and to introduce them with some accurate information that's happening. So at the age about 12, make it a part of your everyday discussions. Use the news, social media, movies, TV as a jumping point for the discussion. A lot of times our students at the age of 12 and older, they're no longer watching TV. They're watching everything on their phones. You know, their TV, their entertainment is right there in their hand all day long. And so some of the shows and the movies that they're watching, they're not even on TV, right? So they're glued to their social media and they're watching what other kids are producing because they're producing content in their own videos and their own podcasts. And so we have no idea, right? We really have no idea everything, all the content and the information that they're receiving. It's constant. And so in order for us to have a better understanding about what their worldview is on some of the crucial social issues that's happening in the world today, we need to be able to have a conversation with them about that. And we need to have the conversation regularly. So not once a month, but you want to ask them a little bit more often than that. And so respond to negative comments with more of an inclusive perspective. And so what I mean by that is being able to have some resources on hand to be able to share with your student, I think is very important. And so I'm going to also share some resources with you later on in this webinar. But I do think it's important that you respond to negative comments. Sometimes in the work that I do in our school district, we will every once in a while run into students who have a different perspective about some of the things that are happening in the world, and they do share it with other students. And so the only way that we know that is maybe a student will let us know, or someone will let us know that these issues are occurring. And so we definitely try to meet with students and parents and to provide them with the correct, accurate information. And so I think that there's a lot of different perspectives out there in the world. And so the only way that we can confront negative comments is to provide accurate information. And we definitely rely on parents and family members to help us provide accurate information. And we can definitely help with providing you with the resources that you need. Okay, let's see. Oh, someone says use parental controls on your phones or don't give kids this young a cellular phone. Very, very true. So that was from Carl. So Carl is saying that, yeah, we have to definitely use parental controls on our phones and different devices, because if not, we'll never know what information that our kids have access to. So thank you, Carl. So high school, we definitely have to continue the conversation as your students get older and more independent. They may not want to share with you, but as a parent, I used to tell my kids all the time, as long as I'm purchasing, if I bought the phone and I'm continuing to pay the bill, then it's really my phone, right? It's really my phone. And so they're just borrowing it right now. The phone is on loan to them temporarily, right? So it is still mine, and we used to do it all the time. We used to do phone checks, and I would have my kid bring their phone in, and I would see what what they've been looking at, what music they've listened to, and then we'd have conversations. Trust me, my kids hated it, but that's a part of not having a job and buying your own phone and paying for it. So that's just how it goes in my house. So teenagers may know about current events, but you should not shy away from the hard and honest conversations. And that's certainly true. You should not shy away from those hard, courageous conversations, because right now in our world, we want to make sure that our kids come home safe. We want to make sure that they understand what's happening in the world. And we know that so many of our students want to go out and be able to be allies and advocates for others, which is awesome. But we want to make sure that they are safe and that the information that they have at the end of the day is correct information. Okay. So it requires parents to have courageous conversations with their children. Ask them to share their voice on what they have seen and heard and how they're feeling. How they're feeling is very important. Our students' well-being is very important. And we want to make sure that we provide resources for our students in regards to their social and emotional well-being. A lot of times, parents may know first how their student is feeling. And so we rely on you to let us know if the student is having some issues or some concerns, especially if it's a race issue in regards to maybe a racism issue that's happening in our buildings or in the community in which they live. Sometimes students aren't able to talk about it. We try to make sure that our students have trusted adults that they can have conversations with. They can also have conversations with their students, their school counselor, a teacher, or a social worker in our buildings. So we hope that students will feel comfortable, but as a parent, if your student has shared something with you and you think we need to know about it, then by all means bring it to our attention, and we will do our best to make sure that your student feels safe as they are in our spaces with us in our school buildings. We want to make sure that they're safe and they feel comfortable coming to school, and we want to make sure that race is not an issue that they're having about coming to school. because we want to make sure that this is exactly where they belong. It is where they belong, and we want to make sure that they feel comfortable coming here each and every day. Parents should model attitudes, behaviors, and values you wish to see in your students, because not only are your students looking at you at young as age 2 and 3 and repeating what you say, they do this consistently. Middle school, high school, elementary, middle, and high school. Our students are modeling what they see at home, and a lot of times they bring it to school. And so we want parents to just understand that they're their child's first teacher, and they're their teacher for the rest of their life, right? So they are modeling after their family members, what they see at home, the attitudes, the beliefs, and the values that you instill in them at home. Then they definitely bring them to school as far as building new relationships and friendships, and how well they do, and being able to be open and have conversations with, about other hard topics that are happening in the world in our school. We really rely on parents and helping us to be able to model those attitudes and behaviors, so when they come to school, we're all on the same page. I think I had another question. Okay. It's a long one, so I'll have to read it at the end. Okay. Let me keep going. Okay. So what are some things that would be quick tips to look for in your student? So watch for changes in behavior. If you know that your student would normally be talkative, and now your student is maybe retreating to their room, they don't want to have conversations, begin to ask them what's happening. Begin to have those conversations. And as we said, in each of our buildings, we have school counselors. And so if you notice something happened with your student, reach out to their school counselor, and we'll make sure that the social worker and someone is working with your student to kind of help you figure out what's going on with your child. Limit what your student sees in media. It may be difficult, but as the parent Carl mentioned earlier, as parents, we can set the controls on our child's social media, on their phones. And so I would definitely encourage that, because there's a lot happening in the world, and we know that not everything is for good. So we want to make sure that we see what's happening in their media that they're receiving constantly all day, but that we can be able to have those hard conversations about what they are seeing and hearing through social media. Be aware of your own emotions. I know sometimes we really get worked up about what we see in the news, or if we hear something on a podcast, or we are in a conversation and our child is watching us. And as we get really emotional about that, then our child can feel that, they can sense that, and they know that something is wrong. And so we either need to have a conversation with them, and we just need to be aware of our own emotions and how that's going to feed into what our children is thinking and believing and feeling. Use all of these moments as teachable moments for your child. Like I said, the talk doesn't start when your child is in high school. The talk about race and racism and equity and inequities happens when your child is younger, elementary age. Those children, they see, they hear, they learn, and so it's a time when not only are the teachers, but also family members are making sure that we get these messages right. Okay. Rely on resources to help. If you need additional resources to be able to share with your student in order to build your own better understanding about equities or inequities, about race, about racism, about whatever it is in regards to cultural awareness, that is my job. So that's what I'm here for. You can always email me, and I'll make sure that I can send resources to you via email, or whatever you need help with. I'll be more than happy to assist. So talking about race, racism, and protesting injustices shouldn't be a one-time conversation. It's a conversation that grows with your child. Okay. So these are conversations that we continuously have. It's just the difference is in what the conversation will be, and making sure that they're age appropriate conversations that we're having with our students. And like I said, if you need additional help in having those conversations, then by all means, just, hey, shoot me an email and I'll be glad to help you with that. So here are some things that I thought were great resources for students and for families. theconsciouskid.org. That's where you can buy a variety of books that will be of culturally specific books. I think they have an awesome selection that you should be able to go there and get some ideas. If you're not wanting to purchase them, you can definitely go there to see what's offered and then go to the library to pick them up free of charge. And if they don't have the book at the library, then request that they purchase the book at the library. So I know our Westerville library is very good at it. If they don't have it, they'll be more than happy to order that book for you. The other place that's an awesome resource would be Common Sense Media. There they have a variety of movies that you can either get the movies and order them, or you can definitely get the names of the movies and then either download them or figure out how you can get them also at the library as well. But they have a long list of movies that would be awesome for your family to watch together in regards to race. Okay. All right. And then for adult learning, there is, I think my thing is in the way, but for adult learners, for those family members, parents who want to get more information for themselves, to educate themselves in regards to race, racism, privilege, inequities and equity, on the consciouskid.org website. If you do / how to be a co-conspirator, there's a list of ideas and ways to support, to be allies, and to be advocates for all people. And so there's a great list there that I would recommend for any family members who, as adults, want to grow in their knowledge in regards to race and racism and equity. I would think that would be a great list to kind of start your learning. Okay, so I think I had a couple of questions. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull that up. So if you have questions, you can put them in the Q&A, the chat, and I'll be glad to answer them. Let's see. Yes, Teaching Tolerance is a great resource. Yes, teachingtolerance.org is an awesome resource. Okay, so I am reading an anonymous one, and the question is, or the statement, my son I have a 14-year-old African-American son, does not want to discuss race much. He has a big heart and doesn't want to talk about anything that may lead to negative talk or debate. I continue to insist on having current event conversations with him and try to keep it positive during walks together, etc. But how do I ensure he doesn't shut himself off from what's really going on with the realities of the world without making him feel bad? So what I would say is right now we're having it's a very heavy conversation that's happening in our world. So of course, no matter where your child goes right now, as a 14-year-old young African-American young man, he will be probably inundated with the conversation about Black males in safety, Black males in education, Black males in, hoodies, and Black males with being safe walking the streets. So that conversation is happening in our schools. That conversation is happening everywhere. And so I know that our young Black boys are feeling overwhelmed because of the videos that they may have seen, not the videos, but the recordings of live instances that have happened over the years about young Black boys. And it's a lot, it's very heavy. And so I definitely say that just always letting him know that you are there to support him and that you want him to feel safe and you believe that it's important that he understands that he belongs here and that he is exactly where he needs to be every day when he wakes up, that he is in the right place every day, just as he is and who he is. And that's what I often tell my son, who is 21 years old, that he is exactly where he's supposed to be at this time in his life. Waking up every day, he goes to college. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. You are loved, and you are important to everyone around you. But I do not want him to shut himself off from the reality about what's happening, because right now everyone sees him as that young Black male. And so we want him to have pride in who he is. And so if you can find anything that he loves, if it's sports, if it's cooking, whatever it is that he loves to do, and then acknowledge and find where there are Black men doing those wonderful things, then share that with him so he'll see the value of Black men. I think that's very important for them to see people and modeling, so that he can see some people that are there doing what he would love to do, so that he can see Black men in the world doing well, okay, that are living and surviving and loving life. So I think not only having the conversation about the current things that are happening, but finding some good things that are happening in the world with young Black men and adult Black men that you can share with him. I think that would be very important. Okay. The next question we had is, I recently had to have a conversation with my white 9-year-old son about cultural appropriation. It was a very difficult um, it was very difficult trying to explain this, particularly since in his mind he thinks Black culture is cool. Any advice, resources that explains why this is a negative thing for elementary kids? Mm, well, I don't know if it's a negative thing that he believes that Black culture is cool, because I think all people, a lot of people have thought that Black culture is cool. And um, if we think about history, just think about our time in history and music. It wasn't music for just one race of people. Music that has been either gospel music or R&B music and now rap music has been enjoyed and appreciated by every ethnicity, race of people, right? So it's not just that Black people have to listen to Black music, right? It can be appreciated and enjoyed by everyone, okay? I think Black culture, meaning Black books or Black I'm just trying to think of what exactly it is that he believes is cool. The way that they wear their hair, the way that they speak to each other, or the way that Black people dress. Even though we were wearing the same clothes as everyone else, maybe that they're taking it and wearing it a little differently. So I don't think there's anything negative about Black culture and the way that your son may appreciate Black culture. And I think that if I I believe that if you explain to your child, your 9-year-old child, the importance of having style and flair and understanding who is the creator of a certain music or whatever it is, and he can show his appreciation and his enjoyment of the art, I think that's totally okay. So it's just about letting them understand that it's not a negative thing, and he's not stealing anything away from them, just understanding that he appreciates and that he respects the art and the culture. I think that would be fine. Um, Someone asked, how can I explain to my 11-year-old about her stepdad and 2-year-old sister is being treated differently because her stepdad is African American and her sister is biracial by other people, especially by family members, and when we are out in public. I was just having this conversation with someone about their child being biracial, and it is all about helping them understand who they are as people, and families all look differently, right? So we understand as adults that families are what we make it, right? families are what we make them to be. Okay, so in my household, the family looks like this. Well, in my sister's household, the family may look a different way. Okay, so we appreciate and respect everyone for who they are. Okay, and who their family is and the makeup of their family. So I do believe that having conversations with your daughter, um, explaining to her what family means for you and what your family unit means to you, and meaning that it's love. Okay, we all are human beings. We all respect each other. We may have different shades of skin. Okay, but we all respect and love each other. And so no matter what someone on the outside sees, they don't know our love for each other, or our family unit. So I think that it's also important to be able to explain to her, all your children. I think having some books available to be able to share and help her learn about diversity, and the importance of who everyone is, because this will probably be different for her to learn about, a little bit more about Black culture and Black history. I think that would be important because she'll definitely see people are treating her siblings differently because of the color of their skin, and wondering why the color of their skin is different. So I think there's some lessons that need to be learned. And I'll be glad to share some resources with you to be able to share, with all of your children about your blended, diverse family unit that I think is beautiful, that we just need to make sure that she gets the information that she needs to be able to feel comfortable and confident as she walks out into the world, with her siblings. I think that's very important. Okay. Just trying to explain the difference between appreciation and appropriation was difficult. He wanted to dress like a Black rapper for Halloween. Got it. Okay. Got it. So you may want to talk to him about that. Yeah. But appreciating, we have both Black rappers and white rappers, right? So being able to dress like a rapper in general, that's just what we're telling them. You want to dress like a rapper. It doesn't mean that the person is Black or white, because we have both. Okay. Okay. Uh, Awesome. So I really appreciate all the questions, and I hope I was, able to provide some information in sharing, what my perspective is. This is only one person. I don't say that everything that I'm saying is the only way to look at it, but it is from my lens and my perspective, as a person who has been, sharing and working in this area for over 25 years, and living a life of a Black woman and a Black mother. So that's what I have to share. So if are there any more questions that you may have? I think this is very helpful, especially for people who are unable to be on the call live, but may have some similar questions to the ones that you've asked. So if there are any other questions, I'll be more than happy to respond. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. If not, I think my time is about up. I think I have 2 more minutes, so I'm not sure what, but I do have, on another, oh wait, I had something else that I did want to add. But if you have any questions and you want me to answer them, I will be glad to do that. I also have a list of, a couple of things that you can do for kids at different age groups. And if you're interested in me sharing that with you, I can definitely share, with you. Just send me an email, or send it to, Tammy Santa, and she'll make sure I get them. But I am, Device C at Westerville City Schools. Okay, someone said not a question, just wanted to thank. So thank you very much, Mrs. Ford. I appreciate that. Thank you. Oh, could I spell out my information? Okay, so my last name is Device, D as in David, E, V as in Victor, E, S, E, C, and then the @ Westerville. I think you could just put WC, Westerville City Schools. So it's WCSOH.org. So that's how you spell my email address. Yes, that would be my email address. Thank you. So thank you very much for participating in today's parent prep session, talking to your child about race. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to ask me. I'll be glad to do that. And then we have a link. If you want to, you can just scan the QR code and be able to give any feedback. We really appreciate the feedback that you may have and that you will provide for us today. So we would appreciate you. So thanks again. Thank you to Westerville Education Challenge and Parent Council for their support with this parent prep program. Please take a few minutes when you can to complete the survey on this slide right here. This session will likely end for all participants in the next couple of minutes, but I will bounce back in and check any of the comments. If you have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And so I'll ask again, if you would fill out the feedback, I would appreciate it. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate that.